1969, Heathrow. The unlikely husband and wife spy team, Helen and Peter Kroger, fly to Moscow after nearly 9 years in British prisons. Startling Soviet claims first made in this film demand a complete reassessment of their role. We reveal who the Krogers really were and why the KGB wanted them back so desperately. The couple Britain knew as the Krogers at a secret location in Moscow. Only a Soviet TV crew was allowed access. The Russians say this aged couple changed the course of history.
The character of Milton Bennett.
Our story begins in England in the 1950s. Ruislip, on the outskirts of London, an ordinary suburb for ordinary people. A sleepy dormitory town, perfect escape from the excitements of post-war London. And perfect cover for a KGB communications centre camouflaged by rose bushes. The Krogers settled in this sleepy dead-end street in 1956, to the delight of one young neighbour.
I was about 11 or 12 when the Krogers moved in to the house, which faced the side of our house in Ruislip. And they were exotic. This was England in the 50s, which was very grey and recovering from the war, and it was a very quiet suburb. And Helen was the sort of creature we had never seen before. She wore trousers, which women didn't then in the 50s. She was loud, she was boisterous, she was very masculine. They seemed a very peculiar match, even to a child of my age. Peter was an intellectual, and even we knew that. Quiet and very bookish, very gentle.
Helen Kroger befriended mother and daughter. This snap of Gay, her mother and friends was taken by Mrs. Kroger and developed at number 45.
We used to go to visit the family because we knew that she was lonesome. She didn't have very many friends, and they were very economical. So many times I used to bring a little present over from my heart, because everybody on the street liked me. All the children used to come, and I used to have candy in the car, and I'd give them a piece of candy to all the children. They all loved me. But why Gay says I was loud and boisterous, I was never loud and boisterous. I was gay, but I never was boisterous. But she recalls me in this sense because everybody there was so meek.
Peter ran his book-selling business from home. To protect his valuable stock, he had the latest security locks put on the doors and windows of number 45. Police were later to describe it as a virtual fortress. Visits were strictly by invitation.
We didn't go there very much, particularly after Peter started to work at home, because obviously one shouldn't disturb him in the day.
Selling books was a new venture for Mr. Kroger, but he'd quickly become an established figure in this tightly knit trade. Sheila Wheeler's parents were among the many booksellers who befriended this engaging couple, though they did wonder quite how the Krogers earned their money.
I think people did wonder that, because they weren't very successful booksellers, so far as I know, certainly at the beginning. Peter was very green indeed. And I think people did assume that there must be some income from somewhere else.
A photo of the time shows Peter with his arm round Sheila, with them Sheila's family and friends.
The book trade has so many people who are what you might call characters, not to say eccentrics. And Peter and Helen were just two more.
In August 1960, Peter became a member of the elite booksellers club, the Antiquarian Booksellers Association. He also played cricket for the booksellers' team, the Bibliamites. Even now, Sheila Wheeler and her daughter find it hard to believe the cricket and cream teas were part of a Russian front. But the Krogers were American-born Soviet spies. The Soviets say that in America, the Krogers played a major role in the greatest spy network of all time, the KGB's atom spy ring. When the Allies dropped the atom bomb on Japan in 1945, its devastating power horrified the world. In 1945, the CIA assured the US president it would be 10 years before the Russians could instigate a nuclear holocaust. But just 4 years later, in 1949, the Soviets exploded their first atom bomb.
The atmosphere in the United States was one of hysteria because how could this have happened? And the CIA and the FBI naturally pushed the line, it happened because of the atomic spies. We were betrayed from within. So there was an hysterical witch hunt to discover who the betrayers were.
And let us not deceive ourselves about the size of the conspiracy. The sullen, somber men, the morbid misanthropes of the Kremlin, hardened and disciplined by their monstrous philosophy, dispose of staggering resources in population, in land, in raw materials, and in the zeal, which is the product of fanatical faith as well as of ugly fear and ruthless ambition.
The hunt for the communist atom spies centered on Los Alamos in New Mexico. It was here that the first atom bomb was built. In 1950, Western intelligence uncovered the Los Alamos spy ring. It had run for at least 9 years. First arrested, Klaus Fuchs, a nuclear scientist who'd worked on the bomb at Los Alamos. Sentenced to 14 years in the UK. His courier to the KGB got 30 years in the US. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, US citizens, convicted of ferrying nuclear secrets to the Russians. Sentenced to death in the US 1950, sent to the electric chair 3 years later. The CIA knew the Krogers as Morris and Lona Cohen and had questions to ask them. But when they got to their flat in summer 1950, the Cohens had gone. Clothes hanging in the wardrobe showed they'd left in a hurry, leaving a mystery unanswered till today.
I'm afraid the American intelligence services don't really know the facts about the role of the Cohens. I heard about them in the 50s. I did not hear about them when they were operating in the nuclear weapons field.
In 1957, the Americans finally caught up with Rudolph Abel, a KGB colonel alias Mark Collins photographer. In his possession, photos of Morris and Lona Cohen. The CIA thought that with Abel's conviction, they'd nailed the entire atom spy ring. Even now, they've little or no idea of the part the Cohens played.
They obviously worked with Colonel Abel, but Abel was remarkably skillful in concealing what he had done. And he was a real tough intelligence officer who wouldn't give away any information that had not already been revealed. So it was much later that we began to understand that perhaps the role of the Cohens was important. I believe we didn't understand that for many years.
Members of the US Communist Party, the Cohens were schooled in underground activity. The Soviets claimed this couple were lethally effective spies of the highest order who helped penetrate the atomic secrets of Los Alamos, codename Carthage.
New York to KGB headquarters, Moscow. Despite increasing security, we are taking further measures to establish potential sources at Carthage.
The Soviets say that in 1941, Morris Cohen, codename Lewis, came to Midtown Manhattan for a rendezvous with a nuclear scientist, codename Percy. They met at Alexander's. Percy was working in New Mexico on the bomb, codename Gorgon. It seems Morris Cohen was a master spy. It was he who recruited and activated Percy to the Los Alamos spy ring. Its controller, Anatoly Yatskov, alias Yakovlev, codename Johnny, now retired in Moscow.
Вот вы спрашиваете, какая была компания, сколько человек принимал участие во всем этом, так сказать, атомном деле, так его назовем. Ну, начнем с источников информации. У меня на связи их было 5 человек. Вот 5 человек. Вспомогательная агентура. Так, 2 вербовщика, они в поддержании связи не участвовали. Так, и 3 человека, которые ездили туда для того, чтобы уже получать материал оттуда. То есть вот здесь тоже получается 5 человек. Вот 10 человек, команда, которая этим занималась.
Till now, the Americans have only known 7 members of the ring run by Yatskov, then Soviet vice consul in New York. One of the main atom spies they apparently never knew about, Lona Cohen, codename Leslie.
New York to KGB Moscow. Leslie approaches the question we are interested in decisively and professionally. Shrewd, clever, resourceful.
Johnny is still in touch. When Peter and Helen sat watching a video of their old back garden in Ruislip, Johnny was there, as he often is.
Question for the Krogers. Were you constantly afraid of being detected? I can't say that I was constantly afraid. Well, of course, there were moments where I felt pangs of fear, but that's perfectly normal.
I think perhaps that the question itself should be reworded, that we had to be cautious, careful, and watch all the time. This was inevitable. We had to do this.
Then 27, Lona Cohen is said to have come here to the quiet town of Albuquerque, right by Los Alamos. Masquerading as a patient convalescing from lung disease at the nearby health resort, Lona met Percy outside this church. On one occasion, Percy passed her a file of the latest information on Gorgon, which she hid in a box of tissues. At Albuquerque Station, Lona got the parcel through security by charming an inadvertent guard to hold it while she looked for her ticket. He called out and handed it back to her as she boarded the train to New York.
Вот когда она приехала, уже вернулась в Нью-Йорк, и эти материалы мне передавала, то она, значит, так пошутила, говорит, знаю, говорит, что все хорошо, Но вот эти материалы побывали, говорит, в руках у полиции.
Вот те люди, с которыми она встречалась, они никак не засветились?
Они никак не засветились, никакого отношения к тем процессам, которые были, они не имеют. И они живут и здравствуют спокойно у себя на родине.
Astonishingly, the Russians claim Lona Cohen, codename Leslie, worked with a number of agents in America, among them Percy, who've never been exposed.
Moscow to New York. The documents received from Percy about Carthage exceeded the information from the other sources. We are grateful to Leslie and Percy.
But has the KGB exaggerated the Cohen's role and invented Percy?
It is absolutely ruled out that it is complete disinformation. Maybe a few details have been changed slightly. Basically, it must be correct. And why? First of all, it is very difficult to tell an entirely wrong, mendacious story. Secondly, so much is now leaking from the KGB. Sooner and later, more details will come, which means that if they invented a story, then the deception will come out very soon.
Atom spy Klaus Fuchs, a theoretical nuclear physicist, said he was surprised how quickly the Russians built the bomb on the basis of what he told them. But Percy, a brilliant technician working on bomb construction, could have given the Russians vital information which Fuchs never had. These claims have changed the opinions of leading writer on Soviet atom spies, Philip Knightley.
The reason that the Soviet Union was able to develop the bomb as quickly as they did was not only the brilliance of their scientists, because don't forget they were already working on a bomb much earlier than we imagined, and they had the physicists capable of doing so. But I think it's now clear, if this new information is correct, we must always have that little proviso. If this new information is correct, then it would appear to me that the atom spies played a much bigger role than I had previously given them credit for.
But could Percy have got secrets through Los Alamos security? We asked Fuchs's closest colleague, a senior scientist on the Gorgon project.
I think the answer is yes, very easy. If it was something he could carry in his pocket or in his briefcase, I think there wouldn't have been much risk. The guards at the gate were there to keep strangers out. The attitude was just that if you employ a lot of scientists, you select them carefully and you have to trust them, because if they're disloyal, there's nothing you can do about it.
Once Fuchs was arrested, the whole atom spy ring was in danger. The Cohens were tipped off by KGB officer Yuri Sokolov, codename Claude.
Мы просто предвидели, что за арестом Фукса могут последовать другие неприятности. Первое, что была дана команда прекратить связь с Сабелем, а мне было поручено снова с ними установить контакт с ними двумя и сообщить им ситуацию и наше решение.
Claude visited the Cohens unannounced. Whatever they had or had not done in America, within hours they were gone.
Я попросил, взял листок бумаги и на листке бумаги пишу, значит, что, какое решение, что от него ожидаем. Он пишет, почему. Я, значит, пишу ему, что вот так нужно сделать, доказываю, что нужно выехать. А он пишет, что зачем это нужно. Мы боевые люди, мы перейдем на нелегальное, будем бороться, на нелегальное положение, будем бороться. Я должен настоять, у него есть указания, он меня выручает. Он, в конце концов, значит, видит мое некоторое замешательство такое небольшое. Он очень умный, догадливый человек, он пишет, это что, приказ? Я пишу, yes. Он тогда о чем говорить.
We adapted ourselves to the life that we had to lead. No matter where we lived, we felt, well, everything is temporary. That we get used to this place, and then after we have to get used to another place. So we adapted ourselves to the conditions.
5 years after they vanished from New York, the Cohens were to rise without trace in London, posing as Peter and Helen Kroger, the quiet bookseller with the garrulous wife, on the trail of NATO's nuclear secrets. Today, the couple Britain called the Krogers live in a secluded Moscow flat.
Сколько лет вы женаты?
50.
She is 77.
Да.
He is 81 and in poor health.
Ой, бедненький, бедненький.
There are no relatives and few friends.
Have you relatives, friends, or family in the West? How have they reacted to your activities? Well, I haven't heard from my family, so I don't know. But I haven't the faintest idea how they reacted, because I haven't been in contact with anyone since 1950.
There are no family photos in the Krogers' flat, only pictures of KGB colleagues. Pride of place goes to Yuri Andropov, chairman of the KGB in 1969, the year the Krogers were swapped for Gerald Brooke.
Now that I'm in the Soviet Union, now I feel as I'm a citizen of the Soviet Union. And this is my permanent home. I'll die here. And this is my house. And this is my home. That's how I feel about it.
У меня такое впечатление, что вы, если слово не переводить, фаталист.
Да. Now what can you do? That's how life turned out. Так жизнь сделала все.
Also honored with photos, the KGB man who ran them briefly in New York, Colonel Rudolph Abel, and Gordon Lonsdale, alias Colonel Conan Melody, codename Ben, who ran them in London in the late 50s. The KGB claimed that after they fled from New York in 1950, the Cohens were given exhaustive training in spycraft. And in 1955, they slipped into London via Vienna, using the passports of Peter and Helen Kroger, a dead New Zealand couple. But why were they sent back to the West?
It is a shame to waste all the years and years of training. With the Krogers, it was even more so, because they were excellent agents, Americans, ready to be used in any country like New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Great Britain. That's why, after some time in Moscow, another identity was provided for them, and then they were sent to another country to operate.
Peter Kroger set up his antiquarian bookshop in the Strand, central London. Within a year, he'd moved his business to the Krogers' new home in the leafy suburb of Ruislip, an ideal rendezvous for their spy master, Gordon Lonsdale, KGB colonel. Worlds away from the peaceful streets of Ruislip, naval research vital to NATO was underway at Portland on the south coast. Among the most closely guarded secrets of the Cold War, development of sonar for the nuclear submarine Dreadnought, launched in October 1960.
The Navy's nuclear-powered submarine Dreadnought was at home to the newsreels. Come and take pictures, they said. And the commander and his number one bade us welcome. For the Pathé cameraman, no second invitation wanted. This was the first time that permission had been...
Dreadnought sonar was a major strategic breakthrough.
Normally, sonar is like radar, which sends out a beam and sends the beam round to detect the enemy by sending out a sound and getting back an echo. In this context, the Dreadnought had such a big array, we had to fix it and sweep electronically from within the submarine itself.
By 1960, the Russians had two Cold War traitors right at the heart of Portland. Chief Petty Officer Harry Houghton worked in the repair unit office. His lover, Ethel G., worked in the secret drawings office. They were both under instruction to steal the secrets of sonar for Moscow. Unknown to them, their every move was being followed.
I'd only been in charge at the underwater detection establishment for a few weeks when a member of security services, which I didn't know he was until he came into the room, and identified himself to me in a private interview that they had every reason to think we had a spy in our own establishment. I asked my security officer, who was the only other person, together with the chief scientist, about the affair. I asked my security officer to watch Miss G on several evenings, and we actually knew what the drawings were in the drawing office where she worked. And after she had left, and when the establishment was empty, we checked that a certain drawing was missing. We watched her come back into the building next day with her shopping basket, and that very night, again when the place was empty, we checked that that drawing was back. So my security officer personally, and myself with him, who went to the drawing office, knew that it was Miss G.
What was the drawing?
This particular drawing was the bow array, that is the sonar array, of the Dreadnought, marked secret.
Once he'd photographed it, Houghton passed the drawing to Gordon Lonsdale. Lonsdale brought it to the Krogers in Ruislip, together with other NATO secrets. But by November 1960, security services were tailing him round the clock. They apparently used to lose him here as he walked through the alleyway to number 45, Cranley Drive, discreetly set back from the road.
The weekend of Guy Fawkes, my mother had this mysterious phone call in the day. Somebody wanted to come and talk to her and my father. And they came down that night. And they were looking for a man. And they showed my parents a photograph. They didn't show us. They showed them a photograph of a man who turned out to be Gordon Lonsdale, Conan Molody. Had they seen him? No, they hadn't. They knew he was in the area because his car was parked. But what they wanted to do was to put somebody at the far end of the footpath from where his car was, because they couldn't follow him that closely. And every time they tried, they'd lost him. So they wanted to put somebody at the far end to see where he went. Could they stay over the weekend?
MI5 stayed for 2 months, using Gay's bedroom window as their vantage point.
In the 5 days before the police came, certain things had happened. For example, there was a police van which was camouflaged like the post office van in front of our house. And we felt very peculiar. So we thought, since Ben was coming on Saturday, we would raise the question with Ben. We felt it would be wrong for us to run away. We felt we must discuss this with Ben and see what will happen Saturday.
That Saturday, not far from Waterloo Station, Ben, Gordon Lonsdale, was arrested. With him, Harry Houghton and Ethel G, arrested as they passed him G's shopping bag filled with nuclear secrets. A few hours later, the police came to Ruislip.
We knew something was going on, my brother and I. We still didn't know what, because the house was suddenly ablaze with light. It was dark, it was January, it was winter. And there were people in and out, and my brother came in and said, "What's going on over the road?" And my mother said, "Oh, I don't know." And that was that. And then on the Sunday morning, the man who had run the operation for MI5, a man called Jim Scarden, came down, and my brother and I were doing our revision. We had exams coming up. We were sitting in the dining room working. And he came in, and he leant against the sideboard, and he said very casually, "You'll be pleased to know you won't be seeing us anymore after today. We arrested Mr. and Mrs. Kroger last night." And, I mean, you can imagine, you know, what? I burst into tears, and I ran upstairs, and I collected everything she'd ever given me. All the things she'd given me, jewellery and scarves and things, and I threw it in the dustbin. I just felt destroyed, you know. Obviously later on, very quickly actually after that, it all became very exciting, that sort of feeling passed. And I don't really know what I think about it now, 30 years on, because the world has changed. You know, we've all changed and the world has changed. But it was, I mean, it was the bombshell of my life. I don't think I've ever had news like that.
The Krogers' home was revealed as the House of Spies. The ever-ready battery contained a KGB expense sheet. The Ronson lighter contained miniaturized signal codes for the transmitter hidden under the kitchen floor and powerful enough to contact Moscow. A tin of talcum powder contained a microdot reader, an adjustable lens to decipher KGB instructions brought to the door by the postman. Inside Helen Kroger's handbag, a microdot letter from Lonsdale to his wife in Russian. Number 45 was a communications center. Nuclear secrets that couldn't be transmitted would be sent in microdot form, hidden between the covers of antiquarian books.
The revelation of the Portland spy ring, of course, came as a major blow to Britain. Two Brits involved. Lonsdale, nobody was quite certain of his nationality at the time, but he had an English name. And then the House of Spies, the Krogers' house, stuffed with all sorts of electronic equipment. And I think something like the hysteria that swept the United States at the time of the Rosenbergs caught on here, and we were infected with it as well. Everybody looked at it, these neighbours, imagining if that little suburban house across the road might not also be equipped with antennae and somebody crouched over the kitchen table busy tapping away on their one-time pab straight to the KGB headquarters in Dzerzhinsky Square.
After you left America, you obviously learnt spycraft. What did this entail? What did this entail?
We learned spy.
Spycraft. Well.
Oh, I see, yes.
What do you feel?
Do you want to answer or say something about it? Say it?
No, I think I'd rather not talk about it.
When Helen Kroger offered the opportunity to talk about her tradecraft and her life as a spy and reveal some of the tricks of the trade, she declines, because one thing that every spy is taught is you never reveal your tradecraft, because even years down the line, something you may reveal will be of use to the opposition. You know, so this kindly, gentle old lady remains right now, right down to the tip of her painted nails, a true professional spy.
Other finds at number 45 included a Canadian passport for Peter in the name of James Wilson and for Helen in the name of Jane Smith. The lounge bookends were split open with an axe to reveal $4,560 US. 74 feet of aerial led from a specially modified radiogram to the loft.
The tradecraft of the KGB of that time was to hide well all the things in the house, in the walls, in the desk, and under the floor, something in the garden. Later on, after the search, after the arrest of the Krogers, the KGB realized that it was all a mistake, because first point, they had too much of the equipment. Secondly, the whole equipment was so much espionage paraphernalia that it was striking, it was incriminating. It was wrong to have it all in the house.
The Krogers were jailed for 20 years, Lonsdale for 25 years, Houghton and G for 15 years. "You are both professional spies," said Lord Chief Justice Parker, "in this up to the hilt." But what did their friends think?
We didn't feel it was our position to judge them in any way. And we felt that what they'd done, they had done for good motives. They'd done wrong, but they'd done wrong for right motives, and we respected that.
Well, speaking about the rights and wrongs of our actions, we felt that what we were doing was part of our lives, that in our relations with the Soviet Union, we were carrying out a cause and a duty that we believed in, and many other people in the world also believed.
While the Krogers believed they were helping the citizens of the world, Gay Search believes the whole episode may have triggered the death of her mother.
I do feel that it was a factor, and she was just 60 when she died, which is no age, really. And she died just after they were exchanged, just after they went back, so she knew they were free. And she used to say to me, she didn't talk about it a lot, but she used to say she would never go to sleep at night without thinking of Helen and Holloway, separated from Peter. It was great sadness.
I was protecting them. I felt that I was protecting them, that there shouldn't be another war, because so many of my friends suffered during the war. Either they lost their fathers, their sisters, or children. And I used to think I was protecting them, because if both sides were equal, America and the Soviet Union, there'll never be another war. So I was really protecting them. I never felt that I was an enemy of them. I figured I was protecting them, and they were not conscious of it. I couldn't tell them that I was protecting them, but that's what I was doing. That's the way I felt.
After 9 years in jail for their part in the Portland spy ring, Harry Houghton and Ethel G. were released. Both now dead, they were to have many years in which to reflect on their motives.
You've taken the whole blame for this, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Well, you've said that you did it for the money, pure and simple.
Have I said I've done it for the money?
You were quoted as saying this when you came out.
Look, you must never believe what you're told.
Well, why did you do it?
I did it for the money. But now that's the first time that's ever been said.
Well, if you did it for the money, why did Miss G do it?
Miss
Because
G,
I was a mug.
Miss G was not
Actually,
aware of what was
I
behind it
a
all.
mug.
You were a mug?
I was a mug.
You were con?
I was a fool. And I don't suffer fool's gladness.
And he made the fool of you? And you still are thinking about marrying him after that?
Wait a minute. No one's ever said anything about marrying. Now, the newspapers put this story around that we're going to marry. I've never said I'm going to marry Miss G. Miss G's never said she's going to marry me. But
the situation's
by
strange,
the very nature of things, it may happen. But we've not arranged it. We got to know each other.
In 1971, Ethel G. married Harry Houghton. They had 13 years of married life, living near Portland. But what was the significance of the Portland spy ring? Despite the fear at the time that major secrets had been stolen from Moscow, British security maintains this was a botched job.
I actually was shown a list of the questions which had obviously come from Moscow via the Krogers, Lonsdale, Houghton to G, and had they been put to a scientist who had been so minded to give the right replies, they would have received very damaging information indeed. But in fact, none of those questions were asked and no replies were given to them. All that they got were some drawings.
There was no Percy at Portland, and Houghton, unlike Colonel Abel, was no photographer.
Lonsdale gave to Houghton a camera, and I'm glad to say that Houghton was a very bad amateur photographer. He had to develop the films himself, because he couldn't send them anywhere, in a darkened bathroom at his home. And I personally saw some of the prints after the case was open, and they were very difficult to decipher. So I'm happy to say that I don't think the Russians got very much.
The KGB confirmed that the Portland operation, unlike the Los Alamos spy ring, was a dismal failure. The Krogers spent almost 9 years in a succession of British jails. But even in their darkest moments, the Krogers say they never doubted the KGB would rescue them.
We were in Manchester prison, and one morning, the prison warder opened up the door. When I saw the door open, I stepped out on the platform in front of my door, and I heard shouting. The whole prison seemed to be shouting, and the whole heaven above seemed to be shouting, Lonsdale was swapped, Lonsdale was swapped. Lonsdale meant Ben. That meant Ben was freed. And from that moment on, I felt that I was walking in the sky. And I understood that our day would come. Ben had told us months before that our day would come. And we felt this all the way through to the very day we were freed from prison.
The KGB was fighting for the Krogers, while I was member of the department which was responsible for the Krogers. I kept hearing from the bosses of the directorate that we must do something to get the Krogers out. The top leaders of the KGB are preoccupied with the idea how to get them out.
The driving force behind the KGB campaign was Colonel Conan Melody, Ben. Now back in Moscow after his spy swap, Ben had reason to feel guilty. As the flamboyant Gordon Lonsdale, he'd exposed the Krogers by befriending them and visiting them far too often.
The fact was that he, a professional officer, a colonel of the KGB, he behaved in a flippant way, visiting frequently the Krogers, not dry cleaning himself against the British surveillance, and bringing actually the surveillance to the house of the Krogers, that he blew the Krogers. So because he was guilty, he wanted to get them released at any price. And he was telling everybody in the KGB how important the Krogers were and how it was important to get them out.
But the top brass at KGB headquarters had no more bargaining counters. Lonsdale's exchange for a British agent meant they'd run out of real British spies to swap for Russian ones. Within a year, the KGB had set up a naive young Englishman to serve as a hostage against the Krogers' release.
The voices outside said that they were representatives of the authorities, and in came 4 men, I think it was, burly individuals in traditional leather coats, and one of them actually had a camera and was filming the whole proceedings. And they turned out to be KGB officers, officials, And a lengthy process of searching and documenting the whole occasion began, which went on for 3 or 4 hours.
Gerald Brooke was arrested for spying in 1965 and spent 4 years in Soviet prisons. Even when he was released, he couldn't understand exactly why the KGB had gone to such lengths to plan his arrest and imprisonment. A hostage of the 60s, Brooke found himself a national hero.
When was the first occasion you knew that you were going to be released? When did you hear about it?
It was announced to me that my appeal for clemency had been granted.
Accused of spying, his only offence had been to help distribute anti-communist propaganda with the aid of a child's printing kit.
He seemed quite pleased to tell you this, did he?
Come on.
Did you have any idea that you're being swapped for the Krogers?
I can't answer any questions like that.
No, we've had enough. Very important. A lot of businessmen, a lot of people are watching and are about to go to Russia.
Within months of Brooke flying into London, the Krogers flew out to Moscow.
Within less than an hour, they'll step onto the communist soil for which they have lied and spied and spent 9 years in prison. After 9 years, smoked salmon, egg, chicken, champagne and coffee for the Krogers, as they sit sublimely happy in the seats originally allocated in this first-class lounge to BBC Television News. They're near the end of a long journey. What can one say about this flight to freedom?
We have to say that the Krogers, as a pair, must be one of the most successful intelligence teams in the whole history of espionage. Because just consider what they did. Peter Kroger recruited a major atomic scientist. He activated him when he was at Los Alamos working on the development of the American atomic bomb. Helen, then with great danger, smuggled out this man's information from Los Alamos, which was heavily guarded and full security, and got it into the hands of the Soviet Union. Not only did they succeed in doing all this, but they survived. They then went on to another career in Britain, not as important, and finally succeeded in escaping from the clutches of both American intelligence and British intelligence and security services, and retired to a quiet life behind the Iron Curtain. What a coup.
It may have been a coup for the KGB, but this spy swap has left both sides scarred with self-doubt over 20 years later. Gerald Brooke, the spy who never was, may be relieved to hear the Portland spy ring was a fiasco. But the claim that the Krogers had a glorious past as atom spies in America may trouble a man still uneasy over his role in their release.
I would never willingly have put myself in a position where I might jeopardize the security of this country or the security of the West. And inevitably, landing in the position that I did, I have to admit that I may have done just that, i.e. done something that I would have avoided if possible. But something that I did, a step that I took, put me in a situation where my fate was balanced in a small measure against the security of the country, and I do feel responsible for that.
We don't know many of his doings. They know more about his doings because he didn't.
I think the Krogers at this moment must have mixed emotions. One is they feel they did a great job for the side they'd chosen. The other part must be looking outside the hospital window at what's occurring in the Soviet Union around them and beginning to wonder whether that part of it was worthwhile at all. Maybe maintaining the peace for those 40 years is outweighed by the fact that the system that they supported and helped to maintain is crumbling to pieces before their very eyes.
How free are you here? I feel perfectly free. I never felt any repression. I expressed myself the way I wanted to. I criticized when I thought something was wrong. And there was never any repercussions. So the only thing I know is what I read in the papers.
No, I don't think that goes far enough. What Helen just said.
Well, are you free? The question is, how free are you here?
All right, but the question here is, what is freedom? first, let me say this.
Again,
See?
we're going into theater.
All right, if not, then we're
All
not
right.
answering properly. I have to say to
All
you.
right, all right, all right.
I was a student and a teacher in history, and the world moves historically. Therefore, I could not help but feel that when it comes to freedom, there were certain shortcomings in the Soviet Union. If the Soviet Union is to go further, then we must get rid of those shortcomings which involve the matter of freedom in many avenues of life.
Thank you. Next.
Within a few weeks of this interview, the failed communist coup took place. Immobilized by illness, the Krogers face an uncertain future in a Russia they hardly recognize. The two aged spies have plenty of time to question the creed for which they sacrificed their friends, their family, and themselves.
I would say that in the early years, we did not feel this as sharply as in later years, as we got older. And when we came here, we returned. And especially in the past 10 years. In the past 10 years, life was much more difficult than before. The past 10 years revealed a great deal that we did not think about deeply. In the past 10 years, we thought very deeply, and still do.
I can't believe it. Oh, goodness sake. Oh, we've all changed. It's good to see you.
I've changed a bit.
Oh, don't tell me that. I haven't changed a bit.
No, honestly.
You know, we were looking at the picture. Listen, we were looking at the picture of you, Papa, Mama, and Mary, the one that Mama sent me years ago.